Okay, the third story in the method of public narrative is the story of now. And we're going to see an example here from the civil rights movement in America, which is one of my favorite examples of collective action and one that inspired me when I was a young person to get involved in all the different struggles out there for a more just and democratic world. You all know who Martin Luther King is. I bet very few of you know who this woman is, but she in many ways was just as important as Martin Luther King in this early phase of the civil rights movement in Montgomery, Alabama. Joanne Robinson was the woman who, with several friends and colleagues, helped organize the very first stages of the Montgomery bus boycott. You've probably heard of Rosa Parks. She was the woman whose arrest was the triggering event, but Joanne Robinson was the woman who actually organized the boycott itself. So on Thursday night, December 1st, 1955, she's a college teacher in Montgomery. She is an activist as part of the Women's Democratic Club, Women's Political Council. And she gets a call from this lawyer named Fred Gray, who is an active defender of African Americans who had been arrested for frivolous reasons in Montgomery. And they had talked in previous years about what it would take to put pressure on the city to change how this discriminatory policy with regard to the buses. I mean, there were many, many unfair laws, but one of the most visible ones was the segregation of buses, and this was manifestly unjust, that black people had to stand even if there were empty seats in the white section, including old people, including people with packages and small children. And so this had become an intolerable situation for the African-American residents of Montgomery, including Joanne and Fred Gray. And Rosa Parks was a woman who had worked in the another civil rights organization, NAACP, and she refused to give up her seat. She got arrested, and then Fred Gray calls Joanne Robinson and says, okay, well, should we do this? Joanne had already mapped out how they would distribute information if in the case that they called a boycott. And overnight, she and two of her students at the local college go without permission to the college printer. They write a message. They cut it into 17,500 sheets, cut into thirds, which produces 52,000 leaflets, so one for every of the black citizens of Montgomery. And this is a copy of that flyer that called for the boycott. And here's what it said. Another Negro woman has been arrested and thrown in jail because she refused to get up out of her seat on the bus for a white person to sit down. It's the second time since the Claudette Colvin case, a young woman who had been arrested, a teenager actually, that a Negro woman had been arrested for the same thing. This has to be stopped. Negroes have rights too, for if Negroes did not ride the buses, they could not operate. 3/4 of the riders are Negroes, and yet we are arrested or have to stand over empty seats. If we do not do something to stop these arrests, they will continue. The next time it may be you or your daughter or mother. And just so you notice here, this is the word before the word African American was used more commonly. This was the polite word for African Americans used at the time in the 1950s. This woman's case will come up on Monday. We are therefore asking every Negro to stay off the buses Monday in protest of the arrest and trial. Don't ride the buses to work, to town, to school, or anywhere on Monday. You can afford to stay out of school for one day if you have no other way to go except by bus. You can also afford to stay out of town for one day. If you work, take a cab or walk. But please, children and grown-ups, don't ride the bus at all on Monday. Please stay off all buses Monday. And they didn't know what was going to happen, whether people were going to stay off the buses or not, but guess what? They were able to get this information to through the churches, through the newspapers, which were the white newspapers published it as well as a scare tactic. But the black community had been disgusted and fed up with being discriminated against for all these years, and so on Monday, December 5th, 1954. Tens of thousands of black Montgomery citizens stayed off the city buses. The first day of the boycott is a success. A mass meeting is called for Monday night at Holt Street Baptist Church. And this is where we hear this young 26-year-old preacher, one of the young ministers that addressed the audience that night. My friends, we're certainly very happy to see each of you out this evening. We are here this evening for serious business. Yes, so in parentheses here is how the crowd responded. We are here in a general sense because first and foremost, we are American citizens. That's right. And we are determined to apply our citizenship to the fullness of its meaning. We are here also because of our love for democracy, because of our deep-seated belief that democracy transformed from thin paper to thick action is the greatest form of government on earth. But we are here in a specific sense because of the bus situation in Montgomery. We are here because we are determined to get the situation corrected. The situation is not at all new. The problem has existed over endless years. For many years now, Negroes in Montgomery and so many other areas have been inflicted with the paralysis of crippling fears on buses in our community. On so many occasions, Negroes have been intimidated and humiliated and oppressed because of the sheer fact that they were Negroes. I don't have time this evening to go into the history of these numerous cases. Many of them now are lost in the thick fog of oblivion, but at least one stands before us now with glaring dimensions. Just the other day, just last Thursday to be exact, one of the finest citizens in Montgomery, not one of the finest Negro citizens, but one of the finest citizens in Montgomery, was taken from a bus and carried to jail and arrested because she refused to get up to give her seat to a white person. And you know, my friends, there comes a time when people get tired of being trampled over by the iron feet of oppression. There comes a time, my friends, when people get tired of being plunged across the abyss of humiliation, where they experience the bleakness of nagging despair. There comes a time when people get tired of being pushed out of the glittering sunlight of life's July and left standing amid the piercing chill of an alpine November. There comes a time. We are here this evening because we're tired now. And I want to say that we are not here advocating violence. We have never done that. I want it to be known throughout Montgomery and throughout this nation that we are Christian people. We believe in the Christian religion. We believe in the teachings of Jesus. The only weapon we have in our hands this evening is the weapon of protest. That's all. My friends, don't let anyone make us feel that we are to be compared in our actions with the Ku Klux Klan or with the White Citizens Council. These are racist white organizations that have committed violence and murder against black people in the South. There will be no crosses burned at any bus stops in Montgomery. There will be no white persons pulled out of their homes and taken out on some distant road and lynched for not cooperating. There will be nobody among us who will stand up and defy the Constitution of this nation. We only assemble here because of our desire to see right exist. My friends, I want it to be known that we're going to work with grim and bold determination to gain justice on the buses in this city. And we are not wrong. We are not wrong in what we are doing. If we are wrong, the Supreme Court of this nation is wrong. If we are wrong, the Constitution of the United States is wrong. If we are wrong, God Almighty is wrong. If we are wrong, Jesus of Nazareth was merely a utopian dreamer that never came down to earth. If we are wrong, justice is a lie. Love has no meaning. And we are determined here in Montgomery to work and fight until justice runs down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. Of course, you can hear Martin Luther King's speech. If you look on YouTube, you can find him giving it, which is obviously far better than me. But I wanted you to hear the words of his story of now. So let's look at what a story of now. A story of self explains why each of us feels the need to be involved, to take leadership. The us is the community, the story of the community that we're calling to join us in this mission. A story of now presents the choice confronting us today. What is in front of us right now? What is the warning of what could happen if we don't act? What is the hopeful vision of what could happen if we do act? And what is the action that we need to take? That's what the story of now tells. The goal is to create an energy that allows us to overcome what Marshall says are the inhibitors, the most common blockers or inhibitors of action: inertia, apathy, fear, isolation, self-doubt. To transform those feelings or overcome them with a sense of urgency, a sense of righteous anger that we can't tolerate the situation anymore, a sense of hope that we can do something to transform our world, a sense of solidarity that we are not alone, that we can act with other people, and a sense of what he says: you can make a difference, that you can be part of a productive, constructive change. The hero of the story is all of us that we're hoping to engage in the action. And in this story, we bring in strategy, we bring in the head into the heart, right? That we can only be hopeful if we have a real strategy that we think can work. That this choice is something that's specific. It's not like we need everyone to be better, or we have to do one of 53 things, right? Because each one of them would be insignificant. The call to action is both individual and collective. It connects the specific commitment that we're calling on from the listener to the commitments of all of us at different levels, that we all will do different things, play different roles, but all those roles fit together towards this common goal, as you heard in the stories of now, embodied in the flyer from Joanne Robinson and the speech of Martin Luther King. So here is the shape of the story. It's similar to the story of Self and Now, that it begins with a dramatic challenge, and it includes a choice, but it's not a choice in the past, as in a story of Self or story of Us. It's a choice in the present that we have to make right now. And in order for us to make the right choice, we have to understand what's the possible negative outcome, what's the risk what could happen if we don't make the right choice, or if we don't act at all. And then the distinctive part of the story of Now is the call to action. That's where the story finishes, not with a moral, because we haven't lived this experience yet. We're in the process of making this story, and so the story of Now ends with this call to action towards something positive that we can afford to believe in, because number one, we have a strategy that allows us to hope that we can accomplish this goal, and also that we can take pride in the story of us, in the challenges we've overcome in the past. So this is the shape of a story of Now. We can see how Joanne Robinson frames the challenge. Here's this woman who has been thrown in jail. This has to be stopped. The choice: if we do not do something to stop these arrests, they'll continue. And the next time it may be you, your daughter, or your mother. And then the call to action. This woman's case comes up on Monday, so we're asking all African Americans to stay off the buses in protest of the trial. She had no idea if it was going to happen. There was no guarantee the boycott would work, but she had faith and hope based on the networks of people that the Black community had created through the churches, through these legal organizations and civil society organizations, that they could spread the word, and that average people would listen and join in. And then the first day of the boycott at the Whole Street Church in the evening, that's when Martin Luther King comes and gives a more developed, elaborated, and unforgettably eloquent version of the story of Now. The same challenge, but expressed so beautifully. The choice, again, using this visual imagery, the iron feet of oppression, life's July versus life's November, right? These unforgettable images, and then his end, which he uses anaphora, this idea of repeating the phrase. And if we're wrong, the Constitution is wrong, God Almighty is wrong. And we're determined here in Montgomery to work and fight till justice runs down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. This beautiful image of justice as a mighty stream. So you see, again, the story of Now follows the same three parts. Dramatize the challenge, right? You have to show why this challenge is so important. It helps to have a qualitative example, right? Like, this is a specific woman, Rosa Parks, was arrested. The quantitative example, we're 2/3 of the bus riders in the city. So if we stay off the buses, that puts huge pressure on the city. The choice: what could happen if we don't act? In this case, the arrests will continue, and next time it could be your family that's affected. But if we stay off the bus, right, and this is where we present the theory of change. If we, in very short encapsulation, if we can stay off the bus, then we can put pressure on the city. And that was a theory of change that everyone understood what a boycott was designed to do. And as we'll see in other videos, it was the theory of change had to itself be adapted and adjusted as they learned about how the white power structure would respond to this boycott. That's for another video. And then the call to action is a commitment that is specific, measurable, visible, something that the rest of the community can see, and collective. That what you're asking your audience to do fits into this greater plan and strategy. And you want to end, after having given the sense of risk and urgency, you want to end with hope, right? We've done hard things before, and this is where the story of now connects back to the story of us. And you always want in a story of now to end with a call, a question, right? The something on the lines of, will you join us? Will you take part in this effort we're asking for? So we see how these three stories all work together, right? That the story of self is how we create relationships of trust. We start finding points of convergence, and we create that sense of solidarity, that I'll stand up for you, you'll stand up for me, not because we're in a transaction, but because we believe in the same thing. We're part of an us, a common identity. And then the story of now connects back to the story of us, because it's from these past experiences that give us a sense of community worth fighting for today and tomorrow, and that shows us that we've overcome challenges in the past. It gives us reason to hope that we can do it again. And finally, the story of now connects back to the story of self, because the calls to action should, if they're well designed, connect to what brings meaning and purpose to each individual. And that could be in a team, in a campaign, in a community like in Montgomery, right? That we as leaders create calls to action that are designed in such a way that connects to what brings meaning for each individual. And that call to action can be different for different people within the community. Okay, so if you want to read more about public narrative, of course, you can go to Marshall's website. His book, People, Power, Change, has just been released by Oxford University Press. And here are some other story science books that you might be interested in. Brian Boyd, Will Storr, Joseph Campbell, Christopher Booker. Do some looking online, and you'll, I think, find a lot of interesting things. So thanks for listening, and see you soon.